Hi, I'm Kevin Jr. along with Vincent Charles, Afshin Bernard, Chris Jerry, and Coach Tony Bentley of the Wakefield Warriors. Welcome to the Nation's Capital Sports Show.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, so first we're going to start out talking about you, not talking about you, but interviewing you. And when I look over your bio, man, it's pretty impressive. A 32-year illustrious career. You're a product of Arlington, Virginia. You went to school in Arlington, Virginia. You actually attended Norfolk State University. And after that, you came back to work for Arlington, Virginia,
yes.
Washington Lee.
Washington High School was my first job, coaching high school basketball and high school football as well, too.
That's right. And then, of course, you saw your calling in 2002, where you ended up with the Wakefield Warriors.
Right down the street where I grew up at. Thought I was going to go to Wakefield High School, but I was actually shipped to Washington Lee back in the day, and the opportunity presented itself in 2002, and I was named the head basketball coach.
Well, an impressive array of body of work here, more than 202 wins.
Oh.
Wow.
That means I've been coaching a long time.
And in one season, a 29-1 record. Man.
Yes.
And then the most impressive stat, in addition to that, is out of 48 of 55 seniors that passed through your program, all of them went on to college.
Yeah, that's one of the things we try to pride ourselves into. Whether they play college basketball or not, we want to make sure they have the opportunity of going off to college. So that's very impressive.
That's a good thing, because you're actually teaching a little bit more than X's and O's.
Yes.
And you're on the basketball court. You're actually getting in these boys, teaching them how to be men, and giving them the skills beyond basketball, and that's impressive to me. That's the most impressive stat, in addition to your other victories.
Well, today's, like, even with the March Madness tournament going on, every kid that I've ever coached always wants to be a Division I athlete. But we have to talk to the kids about where you can fit in at. There's schools out here for everyone, and we just have to find the right fit for each kid that comes through Wakefield.
And I'm going to let the guys.
Tony, Coach, we've known you a long time,
yeah.
Especially Chris and I, and you even worked here at the station. We called some games together. I can't believe it's been this long now that you've been at Wakefield.
Yeah.
Talk about some of the great players. Let's talk about this season, actually. You had such a wonderful basketball season, making it to the States once again. Unfortunately, you fell a little bit short, but it was a successful season, and congratulations on that. Tell us about Dominique Tam. Start with him.
Yeah, we start off with thinking about Wakefield basketball. Dominique Tham is our centerpiece. He's a 6'4" junior. He was named the Regional Player of the Year, the Conference Player of the Year, first team All-State. I mean, everything that Wakefield does starts with Dominique Tham. He does have some good players that he plays with as well, too. This year we're going to be losing 4 seniors. J.P. DeFranco came in and hit some big shots for us this year. Cal Davis was a transfer from Washington Lee that came over and ran the point for us this year. Jalen Carver has been a 3-year starter on the varsity at Wakefield for 3 years. And then Raekwon Hobson has played on our varsity team for 3 years, but has been a 2-year starter, and he was named to second team All-State, first team All-Region. So we're going to miss these guys that complimented Dominique Tham and the rest of the guys on the team. And I've just been very blessed to have good players at Wakefield in my 12 years there at Wakefield.
What about looking to next year? You like what you have coming back and the new players on the team that you'll have?
I do. I mean, I try to tell the kids, too, so I got to also practice what I preach. Next year's not promised, but at the same time, if we do get a chance to look ahead, we have most of those guys coming back. I mean, headlined by Dominique Tham, Marquay Walton, who's a junior as well, shot 78 3-pointers this year for the team. Xavier Cooper was a part-time starter. He'll be back for us. So we have, again, coming back off of a state championship team, some leadership and some guys who've been there, that's been in the battle. So I'm looking forward to getting started already.
And if you're just joining us, you're watching the Nation's Capital Sports Show here on AIM via Comcast 69 and Fios 38. We're speaking with our very special guest, Coach Tony Bentley of the Wakefield Warriors. Chris.
Well, you mentioned AIM. First of all, I'm very prejudiced when it comes to this guy. This is one of my favorite guys, and you mentioned AIM. We go all the way back to 1993 when this guy was on TV, not as a player, not as a coach, but as a color commentator doing regional basketball 21 years ago.
Yeah.
But, Tony, when I was thinking, when I watched the championship game down in Richmond, one of the things that came up is Potomac beat Henrico. Potomac had 1 loss this season. Who put that loss in there?
I like to say we did. It was a great game. Potomac deservingly won the state championship. They're a very good team. Every position was covered. The night we played them for the regional championship game, we had to play our best, and we did. We got contributions from everyone. Kyle Davis, Jalen Carver, Raekwon Hobson, Dominique Tham, Marquay Walton. My coaches, I mean, the fans at Wakefield was phenomenal that night. There was 500 to 600 people on the outside of the building that couldn't get in. So I felt bad for those fans again, but the ones who got in got an opportunity to see some good basketball in Northern Virginia.
Yeah, it was an interesting night. I was smart enough to get there at
Early.
6 o'clock before the game started at
Yes.
7. There was a lot of people outside. You know, as you talk about your seniors, you know, Tony, the thing that's impressed me about you and Wakefield, you know, Wakefield's not really highly regarded when it comes to sports, but the basketball program in 10 years, they've gone to the States. Yeah. And that's been under you. You've done a fantastic job. And tell me about how the Wakefield community rallies around, because I see a lot of old heads that went to Wakefield in the 60s and 70s out there pulling on for the Warriors.
We've been, in my tenure, we've been to the state tournament 4 times. We've won 2 regional championships and 3 or 4 district championships. But the community, and I'm an Arlington guy. I grew up in South Arlington. So I know what's happening for me now is I'm coaching some of the guys I went to school with, sons. And so they allow me to coach.
Right.
They allow me to, you know, turn their kids over and just, you know, be a good coach. But what happens when we make it this far to a state tournament, we know we have Washington Lee and Yorktown, but we become Arlington High School. And so we just, you know, rally around the one high school that makes it that far. So we don't call ourselves Wakefield when we get to that point. It's Arlington High School.
Right, right.
All right, let's get Vincent to get in here.
Staying with that community thing, Coach, can you tell us a little bit about the feeder system, how some of these younger athletes, some of these talented basketball players take an interest in Wakefield, and what you and your staff do to get them interested in your program?
Ever since 2005, I've actually started a basketball camp. I run a basketball camp for kids from 7 to 14 years old. That gives me an opportunity to see some of the kids who may be coming to Wakefield. Another thing that we do is we have 5 middle schools in Arlington County, and so we're able to go to the middle school games and watch the kids who may be possibly coming to Wakefield, Washington, or Yorktown. And if we get an opportunity to go to those games and see them hit 8th grade, they may make up their mind to come to Wakefield. Now, there's boundaries and things that they all have to abide by, but I want to thank Arlington County for that brand new building that we have at Wakefield, because that's going to bring in some of those new kids that want to play in that new arena.
Let's talk a little bit about your mentoring program, because this is nothing new that you haven't started just recently over the past 16 years with Wakefield. You've been doing this all your career.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about how you mentor the young players.
Well, I mean, ever since I started playing high school basketball in Arlington at Washington Lee under John Phillips, it's been a goal of mine. Once I realized I was only going to be 5'6", I said, okay, I got to stay a part of the game. I want to be able to coach. And so I just wanted to give back, you know, and even with my camp, when I was younger, I wasn't able to afford to go to camp when I was growing up. So now I'm, you know, have a camp for kids who can come and we work out financial situations, but it's nothing like having the kids come to camp and then being able to see you at an early age. The guys that are on my team now have all come through my camp. And I've seen them since they were 7 and 8 years old. So you start developing that relationship with them, and not only with them, but with their parents. And so by the time they do get to Wakefield, the relationships are built and the family is strong.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Kevin. Tony, one of those players you've mentored is now in Division III, Virginia Wesleyan.
Yeah.
He won Rookie of the Year this year, and that's Corey Moore.
Yeah.
Talk about your relationship with him, and have you kept up with him this past season?
I mean, with all my players, I keep up with them. I can tell you where everyone is who graduated, but Corey Moore has been a special young man. You know, he's family. You know, watched him grow up, and to watch him develop. This was a young man who at Wakefield was ineligible his sophomore year because of his grades. And I had to sit down and have a talk with him. I would not allow him to play basketball, wouldn't let him do anything until he got his grades together. He was able to get his grades together. He finished the last 6 games of his sophomore year, and then he became a star as his junior and senior year. He just took us to the state tournament again. And now he's at Virginia Wesleyan. I was able to be a fan the other night. They made it to the Sweet 16, and I was in the crowd cheering like a little cheerleader for him because he had 30 points, he had 20 at the half, but he has that hunger for the game, and he just continues to play hard. And just a quick lesson with that, Corey had close to 1,000 points in his career, but he only played less than 2.5 years, and he tells me, you know, I would have broke 1,000 if I was eligible. And I said, yeah, if you were eligible. So, you know, he's just a good kid. He's back with the program. He was at our banquet the other night. We talk to each other every other night on the phone. He's just a good kid, and I expect big things from him for the next 3 years.
Excellent.
Yeah. Chris?
Yeah, there's nothing more I can add. Like I said, I'm just prejudiced when it comes to this guy because I've been watching him. You know, we started way back when Afshin and I was doing the high school basketball cover in Arlington. We started way back, as he was working his way up. And I'm just reminiscing. And when he said 93, I knew it was a while. And I'm thinking,
93.
that's 21 years ago.
It's been a long time. And I still don't know how you guys even asked me to do the game, but I didn't hesitate. I saw my opportunity.
Yeah, but we kind of saw it in you, you know, that whole time that this guy's going to be something. I didn't know at the time you would end up at Wakefield as a head coach, but man, what a great decision it was by Wakefield to have you go there and take over the program.
And not to cut you off, it's been wonderful. I mean, I never thought I'd be at Wakefield either, because the coach before me was Coach Veldrin, who is my idol, was a legend at Wakefield, 435 victories. So I talk to Coach Veldrin often. It's funny that he texts me. He's one of the first guys to text me after a game. You know, we get to the state tournament and things like that. He's been very supportive in our career at Wakefield. So I have to live up to, you know, not letting Coach Veldrin and the Warriors down, all the past guys. So, you know, I take a lot of pride in that. I am chasing Coach Veldrin. I would love to be where he was, 20, 30 years at Wakefield High School and 400 victories. So, you know, he's been a big mentor to me to try to follow after.
So suffice it to say, Coach, I didn't mean to cut you off, so we got to go, but suffice it to say that you're not leaving Wakefield anytime soon. You're going to make high school your career.
I've been asked that question. Are you ready for the college and level and all that things? But you know what? Wakefield is home to me. The faculty and the staff, my athletic director, my principal, they treat me well. And again, like I said, I'm coaching kids now who I grew up with their parents. Wakefield's home to me unless there's a big money offer job out there on the table, which is not going to happen. I'm at Wakefield for another 20 years.
All right, we're going to let Afshin get in one quick question real quick before we cut the break.
Thank you, Kevin. Talk about realignment and be real as quick as you can about it and how you feel about it, and do you think it's something that's going to change in the near future? Will they tweak it?
The realignment is something that at first I didn't like. Of course, like everything new, you have to get used to it. I truly believe that football has a lot to do with all the realignment and things like that. We just have to make adjustments to it, and with the first realignment, we won a regional championship, so I'm happy right now.
All right, Kevin. Very good. Yeah. Well, we're going to continue to interview you as the course of the show, because don't go anywhere, folks. Coach Tony Bentley will stay with us for the duration of the show. I'm Kevin Jeter, along with Vincent Charles, Afshin Banab, Chris Jerry, and of course, Tony Bentley of the Wakefield Warriors. You can catch us on TNCS Sports at twitter.com. This is the Nation's Capital Sports Show, where it's most definitely on. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Nation's Capital Sports Show, where it's most definitely on the Stitcher Radio Network. You can catch us out on the Stitcher Radio Network at stitcherradio.com, and you can also download the Android or iOS app for your iPhone or iPad or whatever object or device that you have. Kevin Jeter, Afshin Banab, Vincent Charles, Coach Bentley.
Coach Bentley.
That's right.
Like the car.
That's right. Chris Jerry. And now we begin our conversation talking about March Madness. And I'm actually going to, we're going to approach this from a local level first, and going to talk a little bit about the local teams. First, we're going to start out talking about George Washington. Took it on the chin, 66-71 at Memphis. Then, of course, American University, that football score, well, at least as far as the Eagles are concerned, 35 to 75, Wisconsin. And then the one shining moment and star locally is the UVA 70-59 over Coastal Carolina. And actually they went on and won another game since then, but we're going to actually talk about these games. Let's first start with talking about George Washington. Seems like Memphis had an answer, Chris, for whatever George Washington did. When they shot, they were in their face. When they went up to block, they were blocking shots. Your take on this?
Well, it was a tough matchup for George Washington, but you know, the take that I have on it is Mike Lonergan has got George Washington back to a point where they're in the NCAAs. They'll probably be in the NCAA every year, and this was a learning experience for them. Memphis is an experienced team being in NCAA tournaments. So, you know, I don't think GW has to hold their heads on that one. I think that was a game that probably played out like most fans thought it would.
And Coach?
Yeah, about the same thing. Chris is correct. I mean, experience, nothing like getting that tournament experience. I know they want to win. It's nothing like the experience.
I agree with the gentleman, Kevin. Mike Lonergan is going to get them back to where Mike Jarvis got them originally, and maybe even go beyond that in the future. I think he's going to see a lot of success at George Washington.
Vincent?
And I'm along the line with you guys. Lonergan has recruited very well. He's got a lot of good young players coming in, and he has a young team. They'll be back.
And let's talk a little bit about that freight train called Wisconsin. A little bit too much for the struggling Eagles, Afshin.
Yeah, AU got slapped around. There's no doubt about it. What do they have? 8 or 9 points in the second half. I mean, they played them tough in the first half, but then Wisconsin said, it's time to roll now. And I'm sure Coach had a good talking to them at halftime, and they just took it to them, and they beat AU pretty good.
Beat them like they stole something.
They did. They might have.
Well, Wisconsin stole that game, Coach.
Yeah, just Big Ten basketball. I mean, if you ever seen Big Ten basketball, they weren't ready for that.
Yeah.
And see, when the brackets came out, the one game that I thought was going to be a real big mismatch was this, because Wisconsin was a 2 seed, American was a 15, and then to compound that, you put the game in Milwaukee, which is a virtual home game for the University of Wisconsin. So, that was tough for them to do, but nobody expected American to go back because Jeff Jones left to go to Old Dominion. And so nobody expected American to be back in the mix for the Patriot League. And so, hey, they won, and, we'll see what's going to happen coming up the next couple of years.
Vincent.
American certainly outclassed by Wisconsin. And let's hope that Mark Turgeon and the Maryland Terps were watching that game. Welcome to the Big Ten.
Big Ten.
Let's not forget, Florida got to play in Orlando, too, in their first 2 rounds. So, when you get that high seed, that's the reward you get, unfortunately.
That's right. Coastal Carolina, 59, of course. Virginia, 70. Mentioned that before. Virginia showing why they're the #1 seed. They were 5 points behind at the half, but they came back and they played in grand tradition, playing defense with their legs and not with their hands, and actually they were none the better.
Well, the text messages and Twitter was blowing up on there when it was 31-20 on Coastal Carolina. I was like, see, yeah, your UVA is going down. It's going to be the first #1 seed to ever lose a 16. But as Virginia has shown all year long, they're really good. They make adjustments in the second half. They come out with really good defense, and that's really what they did in the second half. They came out, they made a little run to get it close right before halftime, and then in the second half they kind of stepped it up. So they won that game. I think this game that's coming up against Memphis, that could be a little bit of a tough game, and then if they get past that, then they're looking at Michigan State. So I expect Virginia to win, against Memphis, but Michigan State, let's put it this way, as a Virginia fan, I got Michigan State in my pool.
All right.
I tell you what, Kevin, Coach, you can talk about this. Virginia, Chris, you're absolutely right. They play tough, hard-nosed defense. They are in your shirts. But I also like that they play that gap defense. They don't let anybody ever go down the middle to the basket. If they do, they get hurt. I love how they play defense in the paint.
I just think they're battle tested in the ACC, and it's going to happen one day. A 16 is going to be the one. Just not last week.
Yeah, Vincent.
Chris, don't count your chickens. Memphis, great program, and they got 2 great guards. So Virginia's going to have their hands full.
All right. Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about NCAA. Actually, we're going to shortchange one of these topics here, segments. But let's continue our conversation about NCAA play. I had 2 game notes in which 2 of the games in which I actually like. NC State and the St. Louis game went to overtime. And of course, NC State lost at 80, and of course, St. Louis 83. At one point, St. Louis came from a 16-point deficit, but it's funny in this game, St. Louis invoked something in which I call the Shack Attack hack. And did you know that NC State went to the line 16 or 17 times and merely missed all of their foul shots, Coach?
Well, I mean, that's something you got to stress every day, the little things, foul shots. And they did a great thing, and they called it the hack of state.
Yeah, there you go.
And, it came out, and it worked for them. And, you've got to be well prepared all the way down through the end. And they just didn't make free throws down the stretch, and they lost the game.
Chris.
Isn't it interesting that one of the originators in college basketball of fouling on purpose was Jim Valvano back at NC State when they made their run in 1983 to win the national championship, and then they got caught. But it was really, the free throws, as Coach was saying, you got to make them. And then, you compound that the next. Here's VCU. They missed a lot of free throws down the stretch to cost themselves a game. That's easy points, and you hate to see teams lose like that because they can't hit their free throws down the stretch.
Absolutely.
Tony, you told me one time when we were doing a game, I had mentioned something about a player. I think it was a Yorktown playoff game that we were doing at Mount Vernon, and you had mentioned the fact that, or I had mentioned the fact that one of the players going to the line was like an 89% free throw shooter, and this was like within 5 minutes of the game itself of regulation. And you said, Afshin, it doesn't matter that he's an 89% free throw shooter. You remember what you told me?
Yeah, basically it's a total different percentage when you're under 2 minutes or under a minute. It's just a different ball game.
What's your percentage when you're under 2 minutes?
Absolutely.
And that's what blew NC State away.
Yep.
Vincent.
Crucial. Those foul shots, I agree with you guys. Down the stretch, you got to make them.
That's right. And the interesting about the NCAA tournament, I want to get your take on this, Coach, is that the level of play is different because you may have a #1 seed and a #6 seed, but it's he who has a good night that usually wins the game eventually.
That's the beauty about the tournament. I mean, you can't have a tournament. There's only one sport that has a tournament like this. You can't do this in football. This is awesome. And any given night, you've got to be ready to play. A lower seed, a higher seed can beat anybody. So that's when it comes to when you're playing this much basketball, you don't need to practice as much. You don't need to run up and down. You need to focus on free throws, your last second plays. Those are the things you need to work on. And that makes a big difference in the game. So it doesn't matter who's high, who's low. It's about who comes to play that night.
All right, we're going to end this segment on this note. Who's your favorite teams in the tournament? We know what your favorite team is, so it's written right there on your jersey. So we'll start with Coach.
My favorite team didn't make it, but I'm going with Michigan State to win it all this year.
Afshin.
Well, you know me too, man. It's go blue, but I like Sparty too.
All right, Vincent.
I like Louisville. They're going for their third Final Four in 4 years.
I like Louisville too. Okay. Chris, I'm going to ask you this anyway. It's almost a rhetorical question with you, but why not?
Well, if I pick Michigan State to beat Virginia, then I expect Michigan State to win it all. Hey.
All right, let's continue. And we're going to actually talk about the Washington Nationals. And let's shift over to a little bit of baseball in Vieira, Florida. Haven't admittedly seen much of the Nationals due to March Madness, but what I have seen and what we do know that Ross Detweiler has been demoted or moved over to the bullpen. Vincent, your thoughts on that?
I think that's a good move. We all know that Detweiler can be a starter. So they have him in the bullpen. They need a lefty, a good lefty in the bullpen. So he just adds to that strong bullpen that's there already. But the Nationals also know that if he needs to be called up to start, he can start, and he's proven that in the past.
Yeah, one of the interesting things about the Nationals is that they left that door open, and we'll have to see how that season progresses on as they get closer, about a week and a half away from the home game up, and not the home game, but at the start of the season up in Met State, actually, up for the Mets. Afshin.
Yeah, it's interesting how this is all turning out. The pitching rotation, the infield, as well with Espinoza and Rendon. Doug Fister's going to be the fourth starter. I think Mike Rizzo had an option to get Fister or Porcello, and I think he took the wrong pitcher from Detroit by getting Fister. But I think that they're going to have a very good season, and I think with the Atlanta Braves and all of their injuries that they have, this is the time for the Nationals to pounce on the NL East early.
That's right.
Well, I just hope that the Nationals, they have it straightened out who their fifth star is going to be. I'll tell you something about Detweiler that does worry me, though. He came in expecting to be a #5 starter. They put him on into the bullpen, and I'll tell you what, man, his outings right now in preseason have not looked good. Yesterday, Nationals have a 4-1 lead going into the 8th. He gives that up. I'm really worried about him coming out of that bullpen, that his mind might not be right. And if he's going to be obviously a kind of a long reliever, because they're not putting him in the bullpen to be a closer. They're putting him in to do 1 or 2 innings. And so it's very important if he's coming in the middle of the game to hold, the score and keep it where it is. So I hope he's having the yips in the preseason and can get rid of that.
And Coach.
You guys know I'm a basketball guy. I don't follow the Nationals too much, but I will say this: the guy Fister, he had picked him up in December. I think he's 6'8". I was just wondering if he got a house in South Arlington. He may have a son. So if anybody out there knows if Fister has a son, he can come move to South Arlington.
Fister he's 6'8". He can throw a mean fastball.
Like a coach, always recruiting. Man. Danny Espinoza, of course, looks like he's going to be staying with the team. and he is actually going to be doing sort of a utility deal at shortstop and second base and backing up Rendon.
Right, he'll back up Rendon, it looks like, and Ian Desmond at shortstop. I'll tell you what, the Detroit Tigers lost their premier defensive shortstop in Jose Iglesias. They may come a-calling with what the Nationals have in the middle, but until then, Danny Espinosa will play utility and back up those two guys.
All right, Afshin, we're going to let you have the last word on this. Just like that, gentlemen, 30 minutes have gone by. Parting is such sweet sorrow, but, you know, we got to go. You know, so
Shakespeare over here.
That's right. Well, we ain't got to leave, but we got to get the heck out of here. All right.
Thank you to obviously Devin Gallagher, Kevin Sampson, Patrick McCleary, Ken Briley, Kimberly Phillip, Craig Syfax, LJ Lacoma, Larry Hickman, and of course our Wakefield footage. Thanks to Chris Chang, compliments of him, and xdpicks.com. You can also catch the Nation's Capital Sports Show here on AIM Friday nights at 9:30, Sundays at 3 p.m.
That's right. And if you got a question or comment about anything sports related, email us at info@tncss.net. And for the latest in local sports in DMV, you can go to our website, tncss.net. First of all, Coach Bennett, Bentley, want to thank you for joining us. You're more than welcome to join us anytime that you want to talk sports and basketball. Quick question. Yes. Do you talk basketball or think basketball 24/7, or do you take a break? Do you get a vacation from all this, man?
I really don't. I run an AAU basketball program as well, too, so there is no time off. Basketball 24/7.
Wow. Man, amazing. All right, so for the entire AIM staff and the Nation's Capital Sports Show staff, I'm Kevin Jeter. For Vincent Charles, Chris Jerry, Afshin Banab, we thank you for watching and listening to the Nation's Capital Sports Show, where it's most definitely on. Take care.